The American Film Institute called Katharine Hepburn the greatest female screen legend of all time. Nominated for 12 Oscars and winner of 4, she played a lifetime of memorable roles. But it was her spirit and strength of character off-screen that made her so unforgettable.
What we hope to show is how truly she loved being Katharine Hepburn, how truly comfortable she was in her own skin, how much she lived life every day and took as much as she could out of it and put as much as she could into it.
Today, On the Block takes you to Sotheby's, New York for an intimate look at the property offered in their June 2004 estate sale of this truly iconic lady.
When people think of Katharine Hepburn, they immediately think of Spencer Tracy. And that only makes sense. First, they had this fabulous love affair. She openly called him the love of her life, and they made 9 films together. And still, even 37 years after they made their last film together, anytime you hear of a film, particularly a comedy, that stars a man and a woman, and there's some sort of battle of the sexes going on, they're inevitably compared to Hepburn and Tracy. However, Miss Hepburn had other men in her life prior to Spencer Tracy. Her first, of course, her husband, Ludlow Ogden Smith. But after she divorced him, she had a 2-year love affair with agent Leland Hayward. She wouldn't marry him. He ended up marrying another actress, Margaret Sullivan. She instead was wooed by Howard Hughes and had a 2-year courtship with him. It was after that courtship that she met Spencer Tracy on the set of Woman of the Year in 1941. And when she met him, that was it. She was smitten, he was smitten, and they were together for the next 27 years, until his passing in 1967. After that, I know of no other love affairs. I think she has been quoted as saying that after Spencer Tracy, where else could she go? That he had been the love of her life, and that was enough for her. And now we're going to take a look at some of the mementos that Miss Hepburn kept from some of her greatest love affairs. Our first lot is lot 55, and we have 24 telegrams that were written between Howard Hughes and Katharine Hepburn between 1937 and 1939. We don't think of the 1930s as an era where you might have a media frenzy, like today with J.Lo and Ben Affleck and Brad and Jennifer and Brittany. But back in the 30s, the media was just as hungry for this type of star power. Howard Hughes landed his plane on the Bel Air Country Club golf course just so he could meet Katharine Hepburn. Evidently, she had to have been impressed on some level because they started this courtship. In 1937, she was on the road performing Jane Eyre in Chicago. And the first telegram that we have is from Howard Hughes on January 19, 1937. And it talks about how he's taking a train to that great Midwestern metropolis, Chicago, and he's going to meet up with her that night after her performance, and he hopes that she can stay up. What he doesn't mention in this telegram is that on that particular day, he had broken his own transcontinental airspeed record. He was one of the greatest aviators in the world at that time. And that day, he had lowered his own record by 2.5 hours and almost died in the process when his oxygen was cut off for 10 minutes. He managed to regain consciousness, take control of the airplane, and fly it to safety. But none of this is mentioned in that telegram. It's pretty much the equivalent of, "Hey honey, I'll be home tonight." And when he got to the Ambassador Hotel that weekend, it caused a major frenzy. There were newsmen camped out at every entrance. They had to make a statement that weekend saying no, they were not going to get married. that he was only there to see her perform in Jane Eyre. But it gives you a kind of feeling of the scope of the media frenzy behind their love affair at that time and how much attention they caused between their collective star power. And these telegrams, all of these telegrams give you this fabulous insight into the huge affection and the playfulness and the whimsy they had between one another, because all of these telegrams are signed with nicknames. They never sign Howard or Kate. They're always signing Dynamite Dan, Old Boss, Old Conch Shell. And unfortunately, we don't know what the secrets are behind those nicknames. But it's so great to see. And we were we had to crack a code to figure out who exactly had sent these telegrams, because most of them are addressed to Miss Emily Perkins. Well, Emily Perkins was Miss Hepburn's assistant. So Miss Hepburn always had her telegrams sent to a pseudonym when she was in a hotel. So again, it kind of gives you this sort of bird's eye view into what was going on into their relationship. One of the most exciting lots in this sale is lot 56, and it is the only piece of jewelry in the sale. It is a sapphire and diamond brooch, as you can see in the shape of a basket of flowers, given to Katharine Hepburn by Howard Hughes. And this was during their courtship, and he probably gave it to her sometime in 1938. And this was unusual, not for him. He loved to give expensive jewelry, but she didn't wear expensive jewelry. And you'll see, particularly as she gets older, you'll see her with less and less jewelry. However, we do have photos of her wearing this particular piece. And he bought it from one of his favorite jewelers in this Art Deco style. Our estimate in the sale is $15,000 to $20,000, but it is probably the one piece in the sale thus far that has received the most attention. And it will be very interesting to see where it ends up. Lot 459 are two portraits of Spencer Tracy done by legendary photographer Irving Penn. And I find them very interesting because if you look at them, it almost looks like he's cornered. And maybe that's some sort of metaphor to what his life was. Because when he met Katharine Hepburn on the set of Woman of the Year in 1941, he was married and he had 2 children. And even though he continued this love affair with Miss Hepburn for 27 years, he still maintained his marriage to his wife and his 2 children. And in fact, he would go home every Sunday and visit with them, even though most of the time he was living with Miss Hepburn. And I'm sure that that constituted in his mind quite a quandary at different times, having to lead 2 different lives on 2 different levels. Miss Hepburn's been widely quoted that after she divorced her husband, Luddy Smith, that she never wanted to get married again. And it's obvious, being in a relationship for 27 years, that being married or not married was never an issue for Miss Hepburn. And remember, too, at the time, their affair was basically an open secret in Hollywood. It was not well known until after he passed away.